I was really curious to know, because when I was looking up at your work yesterday, and I found few of your videos on YouTube, and it was from 2006 and like very old videos, right? And when we talk about social media, it's completely like it's a very dynamic thing. Like, it changes every year. So how do you like got into this initially at that time when social media was really treated as a as something good thing which happened to the society, and now people just like curse it, sort of thing. So
well, it sure has changed over the years. But first, let me just say thank you for inviting me here today. I'm really looking forward to our conversation, and I just think what you're doing is fantastic. I just, sometimes it's timing, right? Some of why you start doing what, you do at the moment.
Yep.
I was in graduate school when social media really started to even become a thing.
Yep.
I was, the internet was really just starting to explode when I was in graduate school. Social media was in its very, very early stages. Yeah, we didn't know what was going to be. And a lot of people, I think, did expect that it would be maybe more positive than it has become, because with every year that goes by, there's new changes, there's new twists, and people find different ways to use it, and they're not always good. So it was partly just, kind of the luck of being at school and looking for a topic at the same time as this was all becoming really, really important to society. I'm a sociologist. So although I work at a school of communication and information, and I'm a professor there and I do my research there, I've always been really interested in the social impact of the different things that I'm studying. Yep. And I wanted to study communication and communication technology because I was a disc jockey when I was younger. I was on the radio.
Okay.
I was a music announcer. I was a news announcer, played music, announced at concerts. I loved that. I didn't think I'd be doing it for the rest of my life. So, when I was looking for my next career after that, and I decided to go into higher education, I thought to myself, how can I bring these things together? How can I study media and also study the social impact? So I became a sociologist, and then when I was really looking for what should I hone in on, what's happening that's exciting in the world, that's going to be, there for long enough to be a career. Turns out internet and social media were just coming big at that time.
Yeah.
So I started looking into it. Was fascinated by it. A lot of my friends were using it, again, just in early days, but we were at a university. We were at Rutgers. I actually did my PhD at Rutgers, and people were just starting to use it in interesting ways, and I said, I think there's something here to study.
Right. That's interesting. From DJ, from sociologist, and coming to the world of social media. And again, I'm pretty sure that when you started, you never thought that this thing will become something really big, like the way we treat social media right now, whatever topic which we are going to talk, like psychology, philosophy, everything is around social media. Everything is happening on social media. People are coming up with all the ideas on social media, and that's why the other people who are listening to those ideas are changing their mind and everything. So social media is the epitome of change, I would say, in the society right now, and it's very fantastic that you worked on that throughout your life.
Well, I didn't know it would be a whole career, right? I thought it might be the first chapter, the first thing, and it just kept changing, and there's just so much to say, so much to learn, that it turned out to be really a full career. But I thought it would be something I would study as a doctoral student, maybe write my first book about, do my first research study about, and well, first of all, it's interesting to me. It's something that I love to learn more about, because it's part of our everyday lives, right? I mean, it's structured in everything that we do. So it's not just studying something that's out there. I'm studying something that's happening to me, that I'm dealing with my kids, that my students care about. And I also always like to kind of bring my students into my research, see what they're, experiencing, see what they're saying is important. And this has never been a topic that has gone out of vogue.
It never will.
It never will.
Yeah.
But it was kind of lucky that I, sort of happened on something that was going to have this kind of staying power.
Yeah, I think because I was listening to one of your video, and you said the way you research it, you talk to people, you interview them, you ask about their stories, and that's very important. This is how as a sociologist also, this is the best way to know what exactly is happening in the society. And I think I really love the way you talk to people and the stories which you told in this book also. I was reading the excerpts of it, and I really love the stories of people. But I was surprised that, because that video was from 2006, and the stories you were telling about the world was completely different place at that time.
Right.
Yeah, like, social media earlier was, I want to connect with people who I've forgotten, like, I wanted to connect with those kind of people. And nowadays what exactly happening is like people are doing some sort of shit like so that people don't forget them, to remind, like, to exist basically, to seek validation. How do you think that the social media changed from that period to this period right now? And when exactly this change happened?
Well, I think it always was something for validation and something for information gathering. I mean, I think it was like a much earlier version of what it is now. I've seen it change sort of incrementally, not like all at once. But I think the main difference is that when it was first really becoming so popular, people treated it like it was special and unusual. And so they would like really seek out something interesting to do with it. Here's a way that I can get together with other sports fans. Here's a way that I can find long lost family.
Yep.
People still do that, but now we take it for granted. And now there's just really no end to the kinds of ways that it can be used and exploited. I think also back in the day, there was not the understanding that you could be so exploited on social media. So people would sometimes feel that it would be like a safe space. They would say anything.
Yeah.
In fact, in some of my early work, I really had to spend a lot of time, not that I could foresee how things were going, but it was clear that there were always these kinds of vulnerabilities in the system. And so I wanted the people, as I'm interviewing them, I also want to kind of give them a caution sometimes. Maybe you should be more careful with what you say. You don't want to give out your personal, home address and your phone number, all this kind of stuff. And it was not widely understood back then. People really more thought of it as like something for fun, something for excitement.
Yeah.
And always, but the thing to me that's kept the same is that it's always been something for community. And it still is, but we have a greater understanding now of how communities can be both positive and negative. You say the word. Well, my book before, so I've written this book, Super Connected, that's in 3 editions. But my last book before that was called Portable Communities. And I really was fascinated by just the idea of how you can build a community with people who you've never met face to face.
Yeah.
And it's true. I mean, that happened then. It does happen now. I think we're just getting a deeper understanding of what can happen in these communities. And a lot of stuff is going awry. A lot of stuff is not good. There was always the possibility then, but we're really seeing it come to fruition. And of course, it's not good. But I also don't think we should take away the good things that are also happening too. We're still... think about how during the pandemic, internet and social media really did connect us together. It really stitched this society together in a way that we needed. Like face-to-face interaction was at a premium. It was hard to find. It was hard to get. And it was, kind of life-saving in a lot of ways for a lot of people. And it would, it would facilitate, like we use social media even in education. We use it, as part of work. Everybody's using it in whatever they do. And it was really important then. So it does have its uses. You don't want to lose that, even though we do have to be really careful. And there are a lot of concerning things that are happening as well. People being harassed, people being abused, people being, stalked, and cybersecurity issues and scams, and really there's a lot of bad stuff.
Yeah.
But the good stuff is still in there. You just have to be really, really careful because it's not going away. We're going to keep using it.
Yeah. I think that's one of the important part about social media. Do you have any sort of like story from like when you started researching about this, which really touched you, like, okay, social media is something which really helped someone? Any kind of like story which you heard from someone and you thought, okay, this is something which happened good to the society?
I actually interviewed several people who told me that they organized their whole family reunions on social media with Facebook and Facebook groups. And these were with people they hadn't stayed in touch with over the years, like they had lost touch, or high school reunions with people who they, it's hard to keep in touch with people from high school. But now if there's a high school Facebook group, people are staying in touch. And then they're using the technology and they're using the social media in order to get together face to face, to have reunions which are in person. And these are reunions in many cases which wouldn't have happened, or they would not have been so easy to organize, or you would have left people out. And I had real stories of people telling me, I just got back from this reunion. We're going to do another one every 2 years now that we have, kind of the system to do it. Yeah. And think how much harder that would be just trying to call everyone up on the phone.
That's true. Yeah.
or when you see them. And I got a lot of stories like that. And you have to remember that is still continuing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's part of how we do things now. Again, we maybe don't think of it as that remarkable, but it's really, it's almost indispensable in coordinating a lot of face-to-face activities. And maybe that's one of my biggest findings that stayed true over the years, is that when I first started studying this, people really thought, you know, there was a lot of like kind of confusion among people, like, you know, this is going to maybe like be really bad for society, which of course in a lot of ways it has been, but there was a lot of, you know, concern that it was going to tear people away from one another face to face, that they would not gather, they would kind of go into their own little, like, you know, media worlds and stay there. And at the extremes that can kind of happen, but one of the things that I have found, and other researchers have found this as well, is that much more often people use these technologies to make dates to get together face to face. Being together face to face is still important. It's still the bedrock of society. It hasn't gone away, right? I mean, we now can Zoom, we now can use media in a lot of different ways, but we use it very often to make dates to get together. And that has stayed consistent over time.
This is very interesting, because if I talk about social media and if I like say, okay, what exactly happened? What is something bad happened because of social media? And people also talk about this, and they say that people stopped meeting in person. And like when we talk about relationships, like earlier people used to go out, meet with people. This is how they used to socialize. But nowadays people are just like, if we talk about dating apps also and like all the social media stuff, just people are just swiping right and left and just double clicking, liking their pictures, and feeling sometimes sad and feeling sometimes FOMO and all that, these kind of things. So but your data says that people are actually setting up dates. So
I mean, it's changed, right? Dating and all work and all kinds of ways to get together have changed, and there are all these options, and a lot of the options are to do it remotely or virtually, but when you do want to get together, and people are still doing that, they are still going to the beach, they are still going out to restaurants, they are still going, meeting places. You can't even imagine setting up those meetings without doing it with at least text messaging, if not some form of social media. So the getting together is different, but I guess I'm saying it hasn't totally gone away. I mean, we'd have an entirely different world just full of like, faceless strangers if we weren't still getting together. There's new ways of doing education, right? You can do education online, but the universities are still here and we are still doing it face-to-face as well. There's just more of these options. And, it's up to everyone to decide if that's good or bad or how they want to do it, I mean, if you even can make a decision, because if you can't afford the technology, then you're in a totally different situation, right? But if we're going to get together face-to-face, and often we are, we will use technology in order to make that happen. And I don't think that was understood in the early days, it's like the online and the offline have become enmeshed. You can't imagine one without the other. This is another thing that I've sort of uncovered in my research that others have done so too, but I think is a really important point, that like now we're living these what I call techno-social lives. You can't be social without the technology, right? But we're often using the technology to be social, and some of that's going to be in person and some of that is not. But like, I still don't see a society where we never get together in person, and that was some of the original like worry about it. But I don't see it going to that extreme, even though it has changed what it looks like to get together.
My guess would be like this perception of mine of thinking that people are not meeting in person enough. My guess is that there is some sort of demographic data in this, like people who are very younger generation. I think I would say people till the age of 18 or 19 something, they are the kind of people, I may be wrong, this is just like my hypothesis, that they are the kind of people who are not meeting a lot because they had the accessibility to technology and social media since the beginning they were here.
Yeah, and they went through the pandemic where they were really separated from one another for quite a lot of time.
Exactly. Yeah. And the people above that age has experienced both the worlds, the world of like social socializing like in person and the world of socializing on social media. So my guess is like the majority of people who are above 18 or something, they're more like this, like the way you explained, and the people who are like under 18 or something, they're more inclined toward the social media thing. And I think people just highlight the worst part of anything, like the bad parts of it, and that's why like they curse the social media just to highlight this stuff. But I think, as you explained, like this is very like lowest rate of people who are involved in this kind of thing. People are still meeting in person, and I get that.
Yeah, and then the thing with children 18 and younger, these are children, right? And so parents and adults and caregivers have to help them realize that you need to be in person. I mean, you can't leave children to their own devices. You never could, you never can. Not saying you don't give them some independence as they grow older, but some of this might be a lesson that we need to teach before they grow up, and then there is no one to teach it, right? Because we still remember a world before everything got quite so intense. And but yeah, now children are growing up in a world where it has always been this way. Right. And you need to parent children, and you need to teach them. And it is important to be in person with one another. Like, we know that because we're a little bit older. But those who are younger, I think it's a lesson that really needs to be taught explicitly, because it is again, it's society as it needs to be. An entire society of people being separate. Again, I still don't see that. Children are still, they're going to school, they're sitting in classrooms, they are having play dates, they're going to the park. Some of that is still happening. But yeah, there's fear, and there's just like you said, new norms, new ways of getting together and doing things. Certainly, dating and getting together, it's very different than it used to be. But there's still ways to use. I think it's important to use the media and use the technology for your aims, for your good, not the other way around. Like, you can't just default to the technology and say, okay, this is easiest. You have to say, well, let me employ the technology to help me live the kind of life that I want to live. Yep. As opposed to just saying, well, it's easier to do this, and I'm busy and I'm tired and I'm bored or whatever I am. I mean, we still are the humans. Like, we have to make those decisions. We don't want them to be made for us. But children, you can help them learn how to make decisions. Yeah.
I think it's the parents' responsibility to carve that mentality or mindset of the child to be more open to the social world rather than the technology or the mobile world. So I think that's the responsibility.
It's not instead of, though, to me. I mean, really, these things, they are so hand in glove. It's like, how do you use the technology in ways that will be as beneficial as possible? Yeah. And that's why we need to keep studying and learning what are those ways. What are the best ways to do this?
Being aware of the things which are coming up.
Yeah, there's so much that can go wrong, and that's why children too young shouldn't even really be on social media. They can use, they can watch. They can use screens. And by the way, some of these worries have been in effect even before social media. People used to be afraid that children who watched TV too much would do nothing but just sit and watch TV and never get up and get around. Yeah. And this is now the people my age who we get around plenty. We do lots of stuff, So there are always technological fears. Yeah. And we want to understand that and maybe not give in to that. That's why we have to thoughtfully use technology in ways that are going to benefit us to the extent that we can. So people, for example, who employ technology in work so that they can get work done better or more efficiently, or maybe hybrid workspace where occasionally people are together, sometimes they're apart. Again, using it thoughtfully as just oh well, we have it, so we're just going to use it in this way. You have to. And it's really like anything that's happening in society. You want to understand it, and something like this especially, because it's going to have such big impact.
Right. Because I also personally feel like when I'm working from home, I just don't feel like working. I need to go, I need to meet people. I need someone around me, sitting next to me so that I can work efficiently, because I know that people exist around me. It's not, I'm just doing my work and everything. So I like to go to work sometimes. And I think this is one of the interesting thing. And because you mentioned about this earlier, about this community building. And you also said something okay, there are some repercussion of this also, when you are doing this on social media. I really want to highlight this because when we talk about this from a evolutionary perspective, what social media is, why people are on social media, why people are seeking validation, I think there's an evolutionary answer to this, that earlier people used to seek validation to be in that community because of the survival thing, because they wanted to survive and they can't survive alone. They wanted to be in a herd. They wanted to be in a community. They wanted
needed
to
be.
They needed to be, yeah.
Yes.
And I think that survival instinct has developed and evolved throughout the time. And whatever we are doing right now, just to validate ourselves on social media to the world, is just a way for us to like say that, okay, I'm part of the community.
Yeah, and validation, it's a human response, right? I mean, it's something human. Like, we want to feel that we matter. We want to feel that we exist in the world. And you know, if someone clicks on your post and likes it, you have a certain like tiny little bit of that. But it's also a recipe for stealing all your joy if you're constantly comparing yourself to other people, if you're constantly trying to like see how you compare to everyone. And that happens all the time on social media. And that's one of the big problems. We see it really a lot on Instagram and TikTok. People just using it in ways to be like, look at me, look at me, look at me. And there's so much, again, there's so much more that you could be using it for, right? You could be using it to like get information instead of be seeing misinformation out there. I mean, but you have to be so careful. However, I do get concerned about this because it's just generally a mistake, and it's such a human need, it's such a human tendency to like wonder where do we fit in, and how are people thinking of us? And you know, we're in a community, so we want to be part of it. We want to talk to people. We want them to hear us. We want them to see us. But as that happens, it's so easy to start to feel bad about yourself when everyone is putting up maybe like, you know, this glamorized version of themselves, or you know, they're like just commercializing the whole thing rather than making it authentic. And it's very easy to get that stuff mixed up. And I would think at any age, but probably even especially when you're like really younger. So, you know, being in a community like that old time community we're talking about, you know, all communities have maybe a commercial aspect to them where like, you know, you have to generate money in order to exist. You know, you have to find a way to, you know, to make money in the world. But like lately, just like every post, every like, everything, you know, once it becomes a part of commerce, people are making money off the fact that other people are feeling this way. And, you know, wanting this validation.
They're capitalizing on that, and US being the capitalistic economy, they just see like where people are flowing and they just like capitalize on that. So this is what happens in US, and social media is like one of the biggest place where people capitalize on their fear of not being seen out of the world. Yeah, fear, but also then just this human desire to be part of something. You know, so you be part of something, but you know, what's it costing you? What, you know, your data's out there now. It's very easy to forget about that if you even know about it at all. When you're in these like intimate human moments of interacting, it's very easy to forget, like, you know, oh, I'm putting this piece of information out there that could be used against me, or someone could hurt me, or I'm falling for a scam. It's so easy to do because these are still human spaces. We are humans, you know, wanting to connect with people, wanting to be part of something, learning something. You know, don't forget, like, people are having fun. They're, you know, really like, you know, experiencing something that is very real to them. And then you have people commercializing and exploiting that on the other end, and it's often invisible. So it's not always easy to see that that's what's happening. And I think that's really the biggest difference, I think, since I first started studying this. I mean, the potential for that was always there, but now it's just constant. It's a constant, you know, sort of drumbeat of being online. I think, and like from your perspective, like whatever you have studied, so I think listening to someone who was just like sort of like dating thing, and they were just talking about how exactly people choose like the mating partner and everything. So someone said that people who have private social media with less posts on that are like seen to be an attractive person.
I haven't seen that. I don't know about that, but I mean,
do you know how, like, why is it coming from that? Because they're saying like, because people know in and out, like, okay, if someone is on social media posting every day, they know that, because if I have some sort of insecurity, I'll just seek validation every day, right? And if I know someone that this person doesn't post about it, he does a lot of interesting things, and he doesn't post about it. This means he doesn't want that validation. He's not insecure about himself, and this makes that
he seems more secure, or, you know, a little bit more, you know, maybe high status, because, you know, I don't have to, like, you know, kind of be out there constantly looking for that kind of attention.
So this is something something which I realized that, like in the dating scenario also, like I was looking at some evolutionary psychologists, they were talking about this stuff, and being secure about yourself really, like, makes you attractive. And it's easier right now, like, to see it on social media. Like, you can easily identify people that if this guy is being like,
Do you think so? Or do you think some people are really practiced at putting forth that persona? I mean, what's authentic and what's not?
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a really interesting question about how people perform on social media.
You talked about multiple personas in your book, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was that? Like, just expand
Well, it's just
that.
this idea that, even before the internet, even before social media, people don't just behave, they just don't put forth one persona in their lives. People have all kinds of, not necessarily distinct personalities, but like different sides of themselves that they show in all kinds of contexts.
Yeah.
So you're one way, at dinner with your family, and you're another way at a club with your friends, you're another way in the classroom, and so you're already having like multiple kind of just ways of being in the world. And I think that's normal. That's just how it is to try to interact with people.
Yeah.
But when you put media into the equation, now you've got all these different audiences and you're making all these different decisions, and it's like, what do I wear and how do I look?
Yeah.
And it's almost taking this like performing that we already do in everyday life, but like making it almost like this art form, or again, this commerce. So yeah, some people might be more secure than others, and you can just tell it. Whereas some people might be just really good at putting forth that one type of persona. And maybe when they're not on social media, maybe they're like, a mess. Like, you don't know, or maybe they certainly, I think, and almost all of us have like all these sides to ourselves.
Exactly.
We contain like, these diverse, personalities.
Yeah.
And so I wonder sometimes if social media kind of diminishes that a little bit, because you see something and you just think that's how somebody is. But you have to realize we're all like, so much more complicated than that.
Yeah.
We have multiple just things going on, and, only a tiny slice of that can be posted, even if you post every hour in the hour. You're kind of packaging that.
Right.
But I do think that offline we package it too. Like we have to decide, like, how we're going to dress and act and behave and talk, and we do that differently in different situations. It's a little more complicated online, that's all.
I think performance is something like, okay, sometimes you got to perform. Like, for example, if I'm going on a stage or something, and
we're performing right now.
Yeah, we are performing right now, and it's just the extent of the performance, right? And innately, you're authentic to yourself. You're just performing in a way that, okay, this is the need of the situation, need of the hour, and this is how I'm performing. But I see people on social media. So there's a very big YouTuber, like he was one of the biggest YouTuber. He's not active right now. His name was PewDiePie. And he made a really big video, like I think it was 7-8 years ago, on forced positivity. So how exactly people portray their lives, like mainly the vloggers and everyone. Okay, my life is so cool. Like everything, it's like there is something always happening in my life. And people who are sitting at home, they think that, okay, his life is interesting. My life is shit. And he just talked about it, that everyone's life is shit. And you don't know that. And he was telling this thing, and it really hit me. Like,
yeah, no, everybody's life is going to have some of everything in it. No one lives a perfect life.
Yeah.
It can look that way online, especially when people are being like paid. Like influencers are being like paid to like look like your life is absolutely a certain way, and that can make those of us who are just seeing that feel worse about ourselves, because our lives are messy. We've got we wake up first thing in the morning, we're not all put together and beautiful. Like nobody is, not even the most famous influencer or the most beautiful model, right? Everybody has all of these elements to their lives, and that can kind of get condensed on social media. You just don't necessarily see. Most people are not going to post like the worst of themselves.
No, yeah.
And so it kind of skews, I think, what life looks like. I mean, it does skew it. Life is not social media. Life has all the moments in between.
Yeah.
Right.
And I was with one of my friend, and he has a really good number of followers on social media. And someone asked him, like, do you have any insecurities? It was a video he was making, and I saw that video, and I was on the behind the scenes. And someone asked him, like, do you have any insecurities? And he's a kid right now. He's in undergrad, and he just said, like, I don't have any insecurities. And like, that's not a good answer. You're not being authentic to yourself. Like you could have said, okay, I have insecurity. Everyone has insecurity. It's all about like how do you handle it?
Yeah, but it's not easy for everyone to
Accept
admit
it.
to their insecurities or delve into that or be comfortable with that. Everyone's at a sort of a different stage of their journey. And the parts of us that are not so perfectly put together, sometimes that can get really dark, people can get really low. Life is hard.
Yeah.
It's really, really difficult. And, it's not something that everybody is, dealing with in the same way, right? Not everyone's equipped, but also not people aren't ready. We're all different,
Yeah, but don't you think like if you share, if you be authentic, if you don't have multiple personas, right? People will love you more on social media.
If you're
like more authentic.
If you're seeming authentic. Well, that's what's interesting to me. Like, you talked about the person who seems like they've got it all together, very successful. I think there's almost a certain art to seeming authentic when you're still doing it in front of a camera, in front of, with hashtags and with, with the whole thing that comes together with social media. Who is it who said, if you can fake being authentic, then you've really got it made, that's a...
yeah, actually.
I mean, like, how authentic can you really be? I mean, that's the question. Some people are good at it, like they're just honest and open, and it's still something that people want to be in front of. Some people, maybe you don't want to see them when they're that way, and they've got to kind of sanitize it and clean it up a little bit. I mean, this is just, like, we're all very different that way. But to me, what is authenticity? Like, how do you define that? Like, it's important, but it's also something that's impossible to know. Like, I think sometimes, is someone really being authentic, or is that exactly, their essence? We're really getting philosophical now.
Yeah.
But it's, I don't know. It's
like having an essence and truly authentic is something. Okay, because this is, okay, let me give you an example. So I did my master's in quantitative finance from Rutgers, right? And I did a podcast with one of the guy on YouTube, and that podcast got 20,000 views. And a lot of people from like international, like China and India, like saw that podcast. And people reached out to me and they said like, we loved that podcast because you were authentic. And I was like, I was not trying to be someone. Like, I was not trying to be authentic. I was just like me. I just
being yourself.
Being myself. And okay, there were a few things which I didn't say.
Right.
I was like, okay, in the middle.
Well, that's my point, that we're still not like our fully, like, sort of just like unwashed selves. Like, we're always trying to, like, we have to
hide something.
Well, not even hide. Well, yeah, sometimes that, but just like let's take our conversation right now. Like, I feel like we're having an authentic conversation. You're asking me questions. I'm giving you my very real answers. I think, we're connecting as humans. Like, this is all pretty authentic, right?
Yeah.
But like, like, we're not like burping, we're not like, I'm not putting my feet up, I kind of wonder how my hair looks. I mean, like, even though we're being authentic, we still realize that we're on camera and that we're in front of a microphone and this is going to go out to the world. And so you're not being like, just your completely most base self.
Yeah.
And so, but isn't this still plenty authentic? Yes.
Yeah,
I don't think you have to be like, totally messy for it to be authentic. I guess I'm saying I think there's degrees, but I think sometimes on social media, it kind of collapses the degrees because you just can't, you could really turn people off if you're doing something that's, not correct for your audience. But it's funny too, because different audiences want different things. There are some audiences which would be okay with, like, lots of swearing, lots of political stuff, lots of, there's all different ways that you could be. There's some audiences would expect something just more highbrow. And different people might consider different things to be authentic.
Yeah, and I've also realized that it's very fleeting. Like, even if you like get cancelled on social media somewhere or other, like you said something and people are like now bashing you. I have seen this. People just forget when something new comes in. Just they forget. Like, it's just it's a performance from their side. They just want to, like, say something about you, and after 4 days something new will happen and they will completely forget about you.
Well, it's also part of just how busy and fast-paced a modern society is. There is so much going on, and we're exposed to so much of it now that we're, seeing a lot of it on social media and also traditional media and, and the internet more broadly.
Right.
We're exposed to so much stuff that no one thing usually lasts that long.
Right. And how do you differentiate between like people getting affected, like the mental health problem, if we talk about that? How is it different among guys and girls? Like this is something which I was listening to the other day. There was some other guy and he was talking about how social media affects boys differently and girls differently. Like he said that girls are assumed to be like look in a particular way, like if someone like is now 18 years old, like she should be like looking good, appealing and all that kind of thing, and that affects that person because on the social media her friends and the people are looking so good, like glamorous, which is not true, which is all like made up. If you just take a big data set, it's just a very small sample data which you are treating as a population and coming up with your decision, like, but majority of the people are like you, normal, and you just take that sample and just like get worried about it. Oh, it's fine.
I thought I had that off. See, that was an authentic thing just happening, right? I wanted our conversation to be more perfect and that not to happen, but it does happen. I think, when you deal with gendered issues on social media, including mental health and others, I think it tends to really replicate the gender norms that are out there in society. The ways that boys and girls and men and women, have to deal with some different kinds of issues. I think you're going to see that just heightened on social media. So yeah, for young women, how they look and, are they being sexualized and all of this. It's worse on social media because social media is intensifying everything. But for boys to have to be tough, to have to be strong, to have to look a certain way themselves too, you add into this the problem of how easy it is to bully someone or to really hurt someone on social media when you're not together face to face. There's a certain accountability that people have when they are in front of one another, as you and I are. And when you're kind of hidden and protected by a screen, I think sometimes people are meaner. They don't really think about the effect that it's having on the other side. And you see things like, really the mental health problem is just accelerating since social media has become so just so prevalent. So you will see, a higher rate of suicide. You're seeing, people not always knowing how to deal with what's coming at them in terms of just, harsh behavior or just feeling, seeing things or hearing things, or people like saying terrible things to them and about them. And, being young and not maybe having knowing exactly how to deal with that. But I think at any age, it's really, really a big problem. Just the fact that people sometimes act in ways under like the shield of social media that they would not act in person. And that's something I did not see coming. I didn't predict it. Yeah, of course, that it could happen, anything could happen in society can happen on social media because it's part of society. But that things would get so mean, so harsh, that there would be, so much harm done is something that's really, really troubling. I wish I had a good answer for it, right? Because, when you put people in contact with one another, they can do all these terrible things. And they can do it, in the face-to-face society as well. But, we're just seeing so much of it online, and it's really,
but that doesn't happen like more often in face-to-face society, right? Like face-to-face, if we are meeting someone, like on a natural level, people are always nice, right?
There's a certain check. Yeah, being face-to-face just checks, for most people, some of their worst impulses. Of course, there's still people who do bad things, right? But I think it makes it easier for some people to do bad things when they don't have to look someone in the eye. They don't have to see how they've hurt them. They can just, and maybe they think it's like cool, and other people are thinking it's funny, and they're getting some attention for doing it. And that doesn't happen if you're in a small group out in society. I mean, again, there's always been group problems and gangs and people who would pick on other people, but it really has gotten so much worse.
Yeah, like there will be like very less people who are too confident enough to shout in the public and say something bad to that person. But in the comment section, like there will be a lot of people who are saying that because they're not afraid.
Exactly. I mean, it happened before. Again, it's still, social media is still taking what's happening in society and like supersizing it. So it's not, this stuff didn't get invented with social media. People can be horrible to one another, always have been. There's always, it wasn't a perfect society in terms of mental health before social media, but this is really, it's really at a terrible state. It's at a level that, it should never be at.
It's just highlighted now. People just don't realize this, that people say that the world is not a good place to live right now. But I think it has always been like that, but you wouldn't just see it on your phones earlier.
Yeah, and on the news, and
Yeah.
there is just more, like I said, there's more coverage of everything. You're
Mm-hmm.
seeing everything. I mean, we can use these technologies the way we want to. There are good things out there. We can amplify them. We can see them. We can spread that. And there are certainly some apps and some areas of social media where people are trying to promote positivity, trying to promote mental health, and so that is out there too, for sure. We don't want to just sort of demonize social media or say it's the fault of this or it's the fault of that. It's complicated, like the society that invented it is complicated. So we can't strip that out. It's just that we really need to educate people more about what needs to, like children, how to protect themselves, older people, all of us, how to protect ourselves, how to be careful, how to still use it in ways that can be productive for us, enjoyable. It has so many options. There's so many things that can, good things that can come of it, but at the same time, you want to work to minimize these harms as much as possible. And it's there's a lot of work out there for a lot of us to be doing to try to make this safer and better.
Yeah, and I think that social media algorithm is like designed in such a way that it makes your world so obscure that you just think about, like, you just treat your social media algorithm or your social media content which you're seeing on the social media as the world. But it's not true. Like, so this is what happened with me. Like earlier, like when I was in back in India and in 2020, I was doing a lot of stuff, and I used to open Instagram and see all the positivity like content. Like people are doing this, people are doing some adventure, people are playing sports. And after coming here, like I made new friends and like things changed. I'm seeing like, okay, people are partying, people are doing this. So my worldview, because of social media, became like, okay, this is what the world is doing. But I didn't realize this is like just 1 or 2% of the people who are doing that. But because my algorithm is showing me that, and this also happens with the way people look. If I'm seeing a lot of people, good-looking people, I'll see, okay, I think this is how people look in real life, but this is not true. This is like 1 in 100 kind of situation. Like 99 people look normal.
Right. Now, some of that was also always happening with TV and magazines and other forms of media. I mean, there is a tendency to glorify, beauty and these kinds of things. But this is why I really think it's important that we, educate people about the wider, first of all, the wider world, and that, what they're seeing on social media is just a slice. It's not the whole world. But I really think it's something we ought to be teaching at the youngest grades, like media literacy, digital literacy, like how to be literate about this stuff, how to be, how to really see it for what it is, how to protect yourself to the best of your ability. It's so important. I mean, to me, it is as important as teaching a kid that you can't just like cross the street without looking both ways. Like the internet, it's like a big street, and you can't just like let people out on it. They could be run over, and they are being run over. Like we need to educate children, I think, from kindergarten, maybe even younger, just about, that this is a danger. And here's the best way to, you can't like eliminate all danger in world. There's going to be risk in living. But we want to take care of people and start to teach them, I think, from the youngest ages that this is something they're going to face. And here are the healthiest ways to face it. And that's going to change all the time because there's all these new uses. And so you can't just like set a curriculum and that's it. But I think this is where I think a lot of attention needs to be paid at early primary grades, straight up through high school. This is something I'm doing at Rutgers, by the way, right now. So I teach at the School of Communication and Information, where we've got 3 fantastic departments and 2 really great minors, which have like loads of programs and courses really aimed towards helping, Rutgers students, which again is just a small, amount of people in the world. But if all of our students can go out and teach this to their families and their loved ones and their friends, that that you need to be literate, you need to be smart about what you're doing. You need to not just have the skills, you need to have the understandings that underlie the skills and what the impact of all this media use is. And we're doing so much of that at Rutgers School of Communication and Information. I mean, I'm directing 2 programs. I direct a program in digital communication, information, and media, hugely popular program at Rutgers, and also one in gender and media, which really focuses on gender and other social justice issues. And just with the entire objective is to get students like thinking critically about what they're doing, not just doing it, thinking about it. and using it in productive ways and in smart ways, and then spreading that word, because we really, really need that. And if we can start that, we're not starting that, it's happening all over, but if we can do some of that at Rutgers, right?
Yep.
A big place with, the most amazing students. I just love the Rutgers students. They are the most hardworking, interesting students I've ever taught, and I've taught at several different places. And if we can, get the students fired up to make a difference and to talk about this, and not just, and not just take it for granted, I think that would be, that's the goal for me, and I think for other people who feel like I do.
I really like this idea of doing this, and I hope that course will be like dynamic. It changes every time whenever something new comes in. But with that, I also just want to know, like, if we just make people aware about these things, right? That's a one thing. But let's say I come to you and I say that, okay, you know what, like I'm feeling this, like, okay, my friends are going somewhere and I'm feeling bad about it. I'm not feeling good about myself. I don't think I'm something, like that sort of, self-doubt comes to my mind because of social media. Do you think that we need to educate or tell people that, you know what, like you should be, you are enough. You shouldn't seek validation. That kind of, that kind of learning, that kind of philosophical learning, I
think it's an important message, but also like someone like myself, I can't do the work of a mental health professional, and we do a lot of referring. We have great, counseling center at Rutgers, and they're all over, and it's important, I think, not to stigmatize reaching out for help.
Yeah.
And I don't think you have to be unhealthy to seek mental health assistance. I think just living in the world is so hard. I think it is so complicated. I think we can all benefit from all the learning we can, and some of that learning might be best done, in a counselor or therapist's office. Sometimes it's in the classroom. Sometimes it's at home with your family, or just with your friends when you're sitting hanging out, just talking about these things in a very real way. That's education too. Education doesn't just happen at Rutgers or within the halls of the classroom. I'm even thinking again of my school of communication information, how we've got these different departments there. There's a department of communication which really focuses on, all the different ways that you can craft messages and understand one another better and speak and communicate in ways to really, improve what we're doing instead of just, thinking that we know what we're saying and we don't, really being intentional about it.
Right.
We have a wonderful Department of Journalism and Media Studies to really help train the next generation of journalists, but also people who want to just think and act, with that kind of journalistic critical integrity and literacy. That's so important. And media studies, right, to understand media and, again, interrogate it rather than just consuming it. So important. And our last
Can you expand on this, integrating it rather than consuming it?
Yeah, I mean, again, we're creating media now. We're not just consuming it now. We're posting things. A lot of us are, creating content, remixing content, doing that with intentionality, knowing what we're doing, knowing what's correct to do and what's not correct, what's not just hurtful, but what, when are you stealing something, and when are you, when is it okay to do that? Really understanding. I think it's important to understand intellectual property in the digital age because it's changing so rapidly. When you're taking a class, when is it okay to borrow an idea, and when do you have to reference an idea? I think these are things, people need to know, not just students. And so I'm hoping that those of us at my school, the other department I just wanted to mention real quick is on information technology and informatics. And these are just the undergraduate departments. We have PhD, masters, fantastic programs. And the idea is to get students thinking about this, acting in ways that reflect what they've learned, but then going out and talking about this, to their younger brothers and sisters, their younger cousins, their parents, their grandparents. Education is happening everywhere, and I hope a little bit of it's happening right now and right here.
Yeah.
And we can't just assume that somebody else is going to fix this, because it's too big and it's happening everywhere. And we're all responsible, I think, for participating in this social media world and economy, participating in it in a thoughtful way. You know,
Yeah, like
if we all
even
did
if you
that,
even if you post a picture on social media and you have 200 followers, you are indirectly impacting how they perceive the social media.
and then who they talk to when they go home.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, I mean, it just goes on and on. And, you know, this is a long-standing, you know, principle of understanding media.
Yeah.
But it's really important that there is a flow here. It's not just one and done. You know, everything you do is touching and affecting things down the line. And, you know, like I said, I'm a sociologist, and we study often just how interconnected a society is.
Yeah.
How, you know, you're just, even if you kind of feel like you're, you know, kind of staying to yourself a little bit, you're affecting people you don't even realize.
Yeah.
Not just on social media, but like even when you go down the street, you know, are you being kind to people, or are you being like rough with people? You know, we're all having a ripple effect on one another, and it's never been more important, I think, for us to really think about that.
Yeah, and that's actually true. And there is one thing which is very interesting, and I really want to talk to you about that. And like, it's a very sociology oriented question which I have. So you have studied media like since the beginning, not just the social media part, like the how media has
I've studied
changed.
mass media. I've studied television, radio. Like I said, I've been on the radio.
Yeah.
I really enjoy old time media too. You know, and I think it's interesting. I'll let you ask your question, but I think it's interesting that people kind of still consume that stuff too, even though maybe different ways. But streaming, like we're mixing our media consumption together.
That's
we're
true.
not just on social media. We're posting stuff from the news that
Yeah.
we're watching. We are, you know, listening to, you know, different radio podcasts.
Yeah.
We're listening to all different kinds of things. We're, you know, we're going to hear bands and live music, and then we're putting little clips of that on social media.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, media is consumed like all together, not just
That's
separately.
why I don't agree with this idea. Like when people say that, you know, attention span is like decreasing and everything, but I think people are still watching movies. People are still going to like concerts, and people are still listening to podcasts. This doesn't mean that the attention span is going on. This is just
I'm going
like.
to interrupt you. I think
Okay.
the attention span is decreasing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's some research to indicate
Sure.
that.
Like I would love to know that.
Although people are doing all of that stuff, let me put it this way: it's harder and harder to do it without checking your phone every 5 minutes, or to do it maybe at the same level that people were maybe 20, 30 years ago. I think it's a little harder for many people to consume like, or to sit through like a long lecture, or to read a long book, like, you know, to do a lot of sort of more traditional
Focused activities.
yeah, it's harder, I think, for a lot of people, because you do get you get like an appetite for getting some stimulation quickly. And it's hard to get rid of that once it's in you.
Yeah.
Like I even notice it in myself, you know, like if
Yeah.
I'm sitting through a long meeting, it's harder, I think, than it used to be.
Yeah.
And it's just really tempting to want to check my phone. It's really tempting.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I just think, you know, I think that's affecting a lot of people. So I think generally, I think you would have to say there has certainly been some impact on attention spans.
No, yeah, that's a really nice way of saying that, and I think this is really happening. And I have this thing, like I think I've read it this somewhere. I'm not sure, but so because we have this scrolling system which was made some time back, and so someone was explaining that earlier when we didn't have this scrolling system, when there's another reel, so we used to get stimulus earlier. Like if I'm reading a book, I'm going to get that stimulus or that satisfaction at the end of the book. Like because it's going to finish after like 3, 4, 5 days. And right now I just get that stimulus just after 30 seconds. So I'm like becoming desensitized to the stimulus which I'll get like after a longer period of time. So that's why like I'm like, okay, I need more. Like it's...
Even the movies,
Yeah.
I would bet, and I don't know the research on this, but I bet there are more shorter scenes now in movies generally. And like scenes, I bet you they're not usually as long and kind of slow and
True.
thoughtful, because people might not, again, there's exceptions, you know, we're talking generally, you know. But I think people want things in shorter, quicker bursts now. We become, you know, sort of used to that. And so even if you're packaging something that's going to be longer form, for example, when I teach an 80-minute class, but I break it up with lots of little things now, more than I used to. I kind of always did that because I think, you know, no one ever has a perfect attention span. You know, nobody, you know, listening to a teacher just, you know, talk for 80 minutes is, you know.
Even he's
sometimes
like
can be-
one of the best teachers in the world.
Exactly.
It's like
That's
doesn't
still
happen.
a pretty long time. So I always thought it was important to try to break it up with like little types of activities, but I do it more now, and I speak for shorter periods of time. And I just think that's helpful to my students to be able to pay attention.
Yeah.
If I just stood up there and talked and and there's some places where they will take your phones. And then I think you almost like add an anxiety to the situation where my phone, I don't even know where it is and it's not on me. Like people want their phones to be near them often because you start to think of it almost like as a part of your body.
Yeah.
It's like it's like a limb.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, there's some backlash to all of this media, and some people are like, we should use our phones less and use our screens less, and that's all well and good. But there's also, I think, ways to use them that are productive and are helpful, and it's about like what you consume, not just the fact that you're on them. So, for example, in the classroom, I might have students do a short activity that they need to use their phones or their computers for. And then I'm alleviating some of their anxiety at sitting there for 80 minutes without touching their technology. But then again, I'm teaching about digital technology, so I'm allowed. It fits.
I got the pass.
But it's, I just think it's, again, and it's a change. It's a larger shift in society now that we see things happening faster and in shorter bursts, and I think it's certainly reflective of the social media era, but it's not just entirely about that either. It's about the fact that people, they're trying to cram a lot into their days. They're trying to, they're working often like longer hours than ever, and maybe taking care of a family, and they're doing all kinds of things, and so they want their entertainment to squeeze in that. They haven't got like hours and hours to sit around and just take something in. So it all kind of goes together and influences one another.
That's really interesting, because when you were just mentioning about these things and how you divide your class, I just realized that podcasting has also become that kind of thing. Like people don't watch the whole podcast nowadays. They watch the clips which you make. So what I usually do is like I'll make 30 seconds clip from the podcast, and also like 5 minutes clip which I post on YouTube. And then also, even this is not enough. If you open the podcast, you need to put timestamps in that. If you don't put timestamps, people are not going to watch it because they don't have time to get on the best part or like the most interesting part.
Yeah, they don't want to find it themselves. Again, not everybody, but there is, so that's a perfect example of the declining attention span.
Yeah, I have become like that. Like if I'm watching any podcast, and like nowadays, each and every podcast have timestamps in that. But if I don't see any timestamp, like the older videos and everything where people don't used to like put timestamps, I don't see at that podcast. Like, because I think I have enough things right now where I can like research and see where it's easier for me. Chat GPT and all that stuff. So I just don't want to like invest my time knowing that this might be helpful or not. I'm not sure.
And so if you think about it, it's really changing just what it even means to have a podcast or to make a movie. Or what's another great example is music and recorded music. Like the album, which is a longer form, used to be the sort of the standard. So people would, record an album, and they would think about the order of the songs and think about how it all hangs together. And people would, when the album came out, would listen front to back, and you would have all the just time in the world, and you would just enjoy it in that way. And now, because of Spotify and streaming, like everything is. The songs are thought of as separate, and people just maybe buy the songs they want, or they just listen to the songs they want. And the idea of an album is changing. I don't think these things are going away. I don't think long form media is going away. There's a certain audience for it. But are today's 6-year-olds going to still be the audience for that, or is that maybe going to die off the way some things have died off in the past? But like for me, I'm a real music buff, so it's sort of hard for me that like the although I'm glad that vinyl's made a little bit of a resurgence, right? So the vinyl albums, there are some stores that are just specializing in that, and people are
still love that. People still love that.
Yeah, because there's like that whole retro. I think we do long for some of what we used to have that is getting all chopped up. I mean, I think those of us who can still remember it know what's being missed.
If we remember that, like you can't bring something new right now, like whatever you have done previously, because I think, and the reason because this is happening is when you see on Instagram, there's only a part of that song which you listen to.
That's right. It's not just even the song, it's the hook to the song, it's the piece of the song. And that's not even like, to me, the full cultural artifact, a minute of the song. And I'm sure to you, like, 30 seconds is not in any way representative of the podcast, but you got to play the game, right? Like this is, to some extent, we're all involved in this economy, and we want to make our space in it, and we want to participate, and you got to know the rules. And the rules are shorter, faster. But I do hope there remains a space for that, which is not just longer, but kind of more in depth. because it takes some time to articulate the depths of
It's going to
something.
be, it's going to become a niche then. Like right now, like longer form right now, even though it's a like mainstream thing, eventually I think it's going to be niche, because I am a singer songwriter. So whenever I write songs and everything, earlier I used to write like a sign and 2 paragraphs. This is how I used to write songs. But now I can't write the other paragraph, because people are not gonna like hold until like for a 4 or 5 minute song. I need to finish the song in like 2 or 3 minutes, and it should have the hooks 3 times in between.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is how I need to write a song, because people don't want to listen. Like they get bored. They just switch next.
It's really something. It's really something.
Yeah.
And so that is exactly the attention span decline, because people are getting bored. But also people like you have to learn how to become bored. Like you have to train that almost. You have to learn how to be comfortable being bored. I think that's a value in society.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you're bored and you're quiet and you're not racing to the next thing, that's when something like really creative might come to you. Or that's when you might feel a sense of like peace or calm, or there's all sorts of things can happen in between if we leave space, right? And if you leave no space, those things start to go away a little bit.
Yeah.
But I think it's important. I mean, I think we need to have space for solitude and for rest and for letting things come about slowly, letting things develop. You don't do that when you're chopping it up the way you discussed. So I have to hope that there's still like lots of exceptions, and again, I'm an educator, and so I want to build that in too. Like even in my class, which I'm making into little pieces, I want to try to also create moments for more reflection. Reflection, that's what I'm thinking, that you really need time for and space for. And I like to think there will be some backlash to all of this speed and hurry, so that the longer songs will still be written. I mean, because in order for them to be, recorded, first they have to be like written, they have to be imagined.
Yep.
And if you're saying, I'm not even going to imagine it because no one's going to buy it, then after a while, like the imagination is gone.
Yeah.
Right? And
that's
we want to cultivate that in people because we're human, and I think it's an important quality of humanness is imagination. And that's, in shorter supply if we're not even giving ourselves a moment to be bored and to be reflect and to just be quiet and to just go like, sit by yourself, under a tree or, on your couch without anything else going on, and maybe put the phone in the next room and just see what happens. And, like great art can happen that way.
Do you do that?
I fall prey to the same thing everybody else does, thinking about how to make things a little bit more efficient. But yeah, I'm trying to remember.
Yeah, no,
because I know it's important.
I was also thinking to like do this exercise very often now. I used to meditate earlier, keeping my phone away because I didn't have a lot of friends around me. It was COVID. I didn't used to talk to anyone. But nowadays, because there are a lot of people around me, like it's very difficult to keep that phone away. My phone is still on silent. Like I don't keep it on ringing. It's on silent, but it's very difficult to like sit with myself. Like the one thing is that I can't sit with myself. The other thing is I think that I'm wasting my time. I could have done like something productive.
Right.
So,
but do you see, this also really ties back to our mental health conversation.
Burnout.
Because, I mean, if you want to be more healthy, you have to allow yourself some time to unwind. You have to allow yourself some time to just be. Running 24 hours a day is good for no one, and you have to sleep, and you need to unwind before sleep. I mean, this is just humans need this stuff, right? The human being needs to sleep, needs to rest, needs to just dream, needs to not be going constantly. And that's, a risk that we're seeing it, we're all seeing it, right? But I think we need to create things that are, beautiful and take time to develop. We need to create, I want to hear that song that you're not writing. I mean, I don't want you to never write it.
Yeah.
Or give up like all your best songwriting years because no one's ever going to, because I like to, there are these sort of like retro backlashes that happen. Like when people often, like when my children and kids their age, and also like other people, like, my students, when they discover some of the like great old music, like they love it. Like there's the 6-minute songs that tell a whole story and are like fantastic. They're like, wow, no one's really doing that now. And I see the value. I mean, so it needs to somehow be kept alive.
Yeah. And you listen to it on loop. Like if I find a good song, I'll just listen it for like hours, just on repeat.
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, that stuff, it didn't cease being good. It didn't cease being art.
Yeah.
We're just maybe not making it in the same way now. So we need to like kind of preserve what was also great
Yeah.
and see if we can allow in ourselves some ability to still create
Yeah.
it. Because,
Yeah.
you know, and not that there's only one way to create beautiful art, but the idea is that you can, that you can tap into what it is in you that would want to do that and or be able to do that and not just sort of like wash it away in the stream of constant, activity.
Yeah, that's interesting. Coming back to my question, I was talking to you about like you have been in the media for a very long period of time. There is something which I came across recently, like the perceived realism from the media. So like, how do you define love? So people don't know what really love is, the concept of love is, but they derive the meaning of love, what is like perceived from the media. Like if any movie comes out and I see someone doing some stuff and they said this is love, like when love happens, like there are butterflies in your stomach and this happens, this happens, this happens. So all these things are like perceived, and this is, I think, causing a lot of issues right now, because you see a lot of reels and YouTube videos on this kind of thing, and people start imagining those kind of stuff in their life, and when they don't get these kind of stuff, which is like on the social media, not real, they become like they don't like it. They often fight with their partners also. Have you seen this kind of like study or something?
I mean, I think what you're saying is definitely happening. I just, to me, it goes back to what we were saying about like not having, like the media can't be the parents and the educators of society. Like it can play its part, it can entertain us, it can show us this cute little version of love. But if parents and caregivers and friends aren't also talking about love and what it is, like that's an important counterpoint to the media, right? Or maybe even there's something in education, or there's something in work, or there's something somewhere else in society where love can be experienced other than just on media and social media or the movies. I just think that's going to be so important for children, but for all of us. Like we can't, media is not, it's an important institution in society, but it doesn't replace the others, and if it can keep in its, in its space, it's a fantastic accompaniment to the others. I mean, I wouldn't want to live my life without media. It's like, it's fun, it's entertaining, it brings the world to you. I mean, look at these phones. These phones bring the world to us in a phone. I mean, that's like, it's an amazing invention. Like we should, be thrilled that we have this. But, if you just allow the negative aspects of it to take over, or for it, now that's going to teach me what love is, or what music is, I mean, the technology doesn't decide what music is. Like we still decide that. Yeah. Like can we put forth some sort of initiative where we get the idea that we can build things differently, or so again there are pockets, there are apps, there are places where people are trying to do all kinds of good things on social media, and we need to somehow embrace the diversity of all that rather than getting kind of locked into, like you said, just the 1 or 2% of the world that you happen to be seeing. There's all kinds of stuff out there, and we can use these technologies to bring them to us, but it has to work alongside parents and teachers, and for people who go to church, their church family, and all the other institutions in society.
Because I think on the same point, I think that there are a lot of social activism, or like things which people talk about on internet and propagate some sort of like agenda or idea. People like Andrew Tate and all these kind of people, they propagate some idea and it influences the youth in a certain way, and they stop thinking on their own. So I think that's why also like this is very important to have this kind of discussion with people and to know more about it and what's the correct way, what is the right or wrong. Just think on your own. Just don't take their word and like just stick to whatever the people on the social media are saying. So I think this is something on the same line, which I agree with that. I mean,
it's really what we're trying to do in the classroom. We're not trying to tell students what to think, just help them learn how to think and trust their own thoughts and expand their own thoughts, and to just, be critical of what you see around you and not just assume that, this is love, or this is beauty, or this is music. Like you've really affected me by talking to me about creating songs that are like just, with tiny little constantly repeating choruses. I mean, again, that's one way that a song can be.
Yeah.
But there's so much out there. There's so many ways that love can be. There's so many ways that art can be, and so many ways to build a life.
Yeah.
And if we narrow that down, it's to everybody's detriment.
Right. Your book name is Super Connected. It's a really unique word. Like you say connected or super connected, but the paradox here is that even though people are like connected to each other on social media, still they are alone. What do you?
Well, I mean, no, they're sometimes alone.
Uh-huh.
They're sometimes connected.
Yeah.
See, I'm going to disagree a little bit there.
Uh-huh.
I think most of us, except for at the very extremes,
Uh-huh.
we have connection in our life, and we find connection on the media,
Uh-huh.
but we just can't rely on that to be our
Right.
sole source of connections.
Mm-hmm.
I don't find face-to-face society to be rapidly disappearing. It's
Right.
changing. It's still important.
Mm-hmm.
Again, go back to the people I interviewed who talked about as soon as they made a Facebook group of their family, they were
Yeah.
like, let's have a reunion.
Yeah.
Let's see each other in person. Let's
Yeah.
plan it. Like, we don't just want to do this. Like,
Yeah.
this is great. And if we hadn't done this, the reunion might not have come to pass.
Yeah.
But they want to do that. People still want to go out to dinner. They want to go to the beach. They want to hang out. At the extremes, yeah, of course, you're going to see people who are disengaging from
Yeah.
society. And you always would have had those loners anyway, who just kind of go off by themselves.
Exactly.
And that's not healthy.
Yeah.
And so when I talk about people being super connected, I'm not thinking about super as being a great thing. I'm talking about it being almost like a constant thing. Like, we are constantly connected, even when it's only mental, even when we're only even when we're just reading a book or reading something, we're connecting often to the author or the characters in that book. We're connecting on social media. We're connecting all the time when we're using media. So I think we're a very, very well-connected society. Just it's not always having beneficial impacts. There's harm. Like I said, a community can do bad things as much as good things. But I see a lot of connectedness. Having said that, I think the next challenge is to learn how to moderate it in a way where you're connected, but you're also, how to put it to the side when you need to. You know how to create these spaces.
Do you refer to this concept of parasocial relationship which people form sometimes on social media?
Yeah, I write and think a lot and talk a lot about parasocial relationships in my work. I don't always call them that, though, because I think the word parasocial makes them sound like strange or weird. Really,
Yeah.
we're all constantly making these types of connections, even with fictional characters. That's what gets you through a movie. That's why you care.
Yeah.
Or a video game.
Yeah.
You're playing it because temporarily it matters to you. You don't really think the person is in your life like a loved one. You don't think if you're sick that they're going to come bring you chicken soup. You know the difference, but you're still able to imagine it in a way which is fun for you. So the word parasocial makes it sound a little less than. I think it's just I like the word socio-mental, that it's mental, but it's still social. You still care about it. It can be very healthy. It can be very normal. And you don't want too much of it, but you don't want none of it either. It's another sort of ingredient that you can add to a healthy life. But I think these relationships, these socio-mental relationships we have with media figures, very normal, and all the people who I spoke with talked about them to me. And in fact, it's interesting. A lot of them would say, "I've never been asked about something like this before," and they liked the idea that someone in an academic study was considering normal this fact that they are a big fan of somebody. They're a big fan of Beyonce, and that's not crazy. That's normal. Everybody loves somebody who is meaningful to them, and that even if they go a little nuts with it sometimes, good for them. That's something we all do. And it's not that different from having our other relationships, except that we're just not going to see those people face to face.
Right.
But we know the difference. We know that it's just kind of on the side a little bit. But my next project is going to be more about how we can blend being super connected with also being appropriately, again, allowing ourselves to be bored, giving ourselves these spaces, these periods of reflection, these periods of refreshment. They are so important. And I think everyone knows it, but we need to really think about how to do it, how to teach it, and really, how to value it.
That's one of the best topic to talk about right now. Even though most of the problems which we discussed, I'm not facing those problems. I don't like most of the times have FOMO. I don't have like these things like because I'm like on the brink of like being mature. I'm like growing. But this thing which you just talked about, it's very, very, very common problem. And it's among like most of the people, I would say.
Yeah.
So this is like most of the question I also asked myself, like, how do I sit alone? Like I'm a social media creator and I recently got like 1 million views on one of my video. And I was like looking at the likes, like just keep refreshing it.
I know. It's like addictive. It is addictive.
Yeah.
It's tempting. So I just reject the idea that we just have to somehow like put it to the side. Yeah, we have to do that too, but we have to learn how to sort of like mentally combine it so it just makes sense for us, so that we can use it in the amount that's appropriate for us at the times that are appropriate, but somehow create more space for reflection. I mean, I just think we have to do that, and we have to teach children how to do that. And that's a conversation I'm not sure is really happening enough at any level, but especially like with children. So that's my next work. I'm thinking about how to be, not just how to be super connected, but how to be like semi-connected.
One thing which I wanted to talk to you about, I think this would be like the last thing. I think we covered most of the things. How does social media is treated among like cultural, like you also talked about like cultural differences, how different cultures treat social media and that kind of stuff. Can you like talk about that? I was really curious to know about that.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes we assume everyone in the world has the same sort of experience as Americans, which, we are very social media centric, and many other societies are too. But there are some which don't, really have the even like the electricity or the connection or the internet bandwidth, and they don't have broadband, and there are not every society is as technologically advanced as ours. And I think it's important to really talk and write about that too, because those are people who can't really participate in a global society. We have this is a world, and especially again, given that the media of each group is going to kind of reflect how the society is more generally. The United States society, it's very, very about success, about progress, about moving fast. A quieter country, a country which has less sort of like advancement all the time, or less sort of like thinking about progress all the time, is going to use it in a more leisurely way. I'm thinking, like a type of like a Sweden, Finland type of where just everything is not quite, pushing all the time as America. So social media reflects the society that it's in, and yet we have to remember that some societies, there's still not even a lot of internet access. And there's a really big digital divide, and that's a problem. Because you're going to be left out of a lot of things if you can't participate in a society with using social media. I also think it's interesting though, if a society does not have a lot of internet access, when they do get it, social media is the first thing they do. They sign up for TikTok, they sign up for Instagram.
Facebook, they start with Facebook always. Still Facebook is a big thing. And
Facebook is not really dying as much as you would think, because the groups are still important for people, and it is like an entry point for a lot of other countries. Yeah,
and because I remember this, because in India the internet came widely. The internet became useful in 2016, because there was one telecommunication company who provided internet for free to everyone in the whole country.
Yeah, I think Estonia has that free internet. It's considered like a public good, and I think it should be. Yeah. I think it needs to be like water and electricity. Yeah. Like you should have internet. Like it should just be free everywhere. Yeah. And whatever that would take to do governmentally, I just think that's so important, just to kind of open things up for everybody. Yeah. Some say that would, exacerbate the problem of all this media and stuff like that. But again, like you've said, it's not going away. Yeah. It's going to just continue to develop, and people have a right to be part of that. Yeah, you can't always come up with the cons of things and just shut it down. There are always pros and cons. You just need to be analyzing that and do it strategically, so things doesn't go wrong. Yeah, but also with greater cybersecurity. I mean, oh my goodness, we really need I mean, that's something some people can afford and some people cannot, right?
Yeah.
And some people have the knowledge of how to handle it. Like nobody has perfect knowledge of this because that's, kind of changing every day too. But we need secure broadband, right? We need secure internet, and that shouldn't be something that you just have to like figure out how to do yourself, and only if you've got enough money can you afford paywalls or that's something that people should have. It's like just the security of everyday life, and we know people don't because it reflects society, right? So people live in unsafe areas, and people are on the internet in unsafe ways, but that's really that's one of the first things I would change if I could, have a big voice nationally and internationally.
Yeah. I did a podcast on scams. Like in India, scams is like one of the biggest thing. Like most of the people, I also got a lot of scams call. And the thing is, in India right now, people are not very tech savvy. Like if I talk about my mom, my dad, they're not very like good at tech. They don't know, they don't even know how to use smartphone effectively. And people like these get scammed a lot in India.
Yeah.
And I really want, Indian government is trying a lot of things. And
it's such a problem.
It's such a problem. Like people should be aware. Like people should know what to do, what not to do. And so that is something which people should do with the rise in internet also. So
I agree. Yeah. So I wouldn't want to have that without some sort of security measures.
Yeah. I love that you're working on something which I am very interested in, and I would love to like know about that whenever it's out. Like, are you writing a book or is it?
I am. I'm doing the research for it now, and I'm hoping that
I'll get my another signed copy then.
It takes a while. It takes a while to write these things because it's a heavily researched work. It's not just my ideas, although that's fine too. People who just want to do a think piece, but I'm doing scholarship, and it takes the time that it takes.
Okay, so how are you researching for that particular topic?
Say that again?
How are you researching for that particular topic?
Well, I've decided like the different themes that I want to focus on, and I'm just, I always do a very multidisciplinary research approach. So I do a really deep dive into the literature. I try to see what's happening, what people are saying about it, who are, established scholars or new scholars. In the fields, I look at sociology, psychology, communication, information science, and media studies and journalism, and sometimes a little bit of business and other fields as well. And I'm trying to see like what are the most pivotal things that are being talked about and written about. Then I will contact some of the researchers and have conversations with them and see what I can learn from them. I go to conferences and I spend so much time talking to people like outside of the sessions, like just trying to understand, because I want to know where they're going. And then the other thing that is really important for my research, Akshay, is I really talk a lot about it with my students. I tell them what I'm working on. I ask them, again, about their experiences. I'm still doing the same kind of qualitative research that I was doing in my early years. I am interviewing lots of people about their experiences of being online. I've never stopped doing that. So I have hundreds of these interviews now. So that continues. But, when I add that to a really like solid bank of a literature review, and I have graduate assistants helping me with this because it's a lot, because I'm also teaching and directing a program. But I have some students at the school that I teach at. I'm part of a behavioral informatics lab, and there are students there who are interested in these issues, and we work together and collaborate. And then I collaborate with others who are doing interesting work, and then you just sit it and put it all together like a big puzzle.
So the way I found out about you on internet was like I was looking for something in like social media, and like I wanted to talk to someone like who has studied that. Like that you just talk to me, and I just come up with a lot of hypotheses just on my analysis, just on my reading. But I need to ask these questions to someone who is expert in that just to confirm. And I got a lot of things like clear in my mind today. Like, okay, this is something which I was thinking about this in a particular way, but things have changed now. I'm thinking about things like more critically, and so
I'm glad
thank you so much for that.
Looked me up, and that you had such great questions. But this is a topic that really it doesn't end, and you can't stop learning about it.
Right.
That's why I think we need to start like the education really early with young children, because there is, you can't start too soon with something a topic that's this broad and big and important. Yeah,
and one thing I loved that we advocated about mental health, that people shouldn't be like so stigmatized about not reaching out to professional. I think even if you feel bad and if you just want to talk to someone, just go to them and talk to them. I think they can help you if you are feeling in a certain way, and just
I think it can help make a good life even better. I
Yeah.
think there's really, again,
Yeah.
this is something which everybody maybe can't afford. People, are going to think about it differently or have different, abilities to maybe access mental health resources. But gosh, I think it's a big part of the whole conversation about social media and living in today's world, which, as I said before, is a hard, difficult, complicated world, and we need all the help we can get.
Yeah, and I think the best part was that Rutgers always provided us a counselor to talk to for free, so we don't have to spend.
That's right.
So that's the best thing. And even right now, I'm working there at a company, and they also provide free counselor. So
wouldn't that be great if like all companies did that, or if that was like a major perk? I think that would be.
There should be. All right. Thank you so much, Professor, for coming in.
You are
and
welcome. I enjoyed
love the
it.
conversation. And I don't say this usually. I love the conversation. Okay.
Aww,
So
I enjoyed it
thank
too.
you so
Thank
much.
you.